Hi everyone, it's Sadal Hosseini. On today's episode on Through Your Eyes, we have Stephanie Sipple here who's going to talk a little bit about her collegiate journey with swimming and all different type of struggles she has related to that. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
So tell me a little about who you are, what you do, and like where you come from.
Okay, so I'm Stephanie Sipple. This is my first year of grad school, so I'm a fifth year. I am from Pittsburgh, and I transferred here from Cleveland State after sophomore year.
So tell me a little bit more about that, like Cleveland State, you know, how your experience was there and like how you even ended up at Edinboro.
Okay, so my freshman year, I was pretty sure that I wanted to transfer, but there was a bunch of things going on that year, and then we got a whole new coaching staff, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay, let's see, you know, if it'll be better, and it wasn't, and it was almost to the point, there was just a bunch of things going on where I felt like I almost even wanted to quit, and I'm not somebody who, like, takes that lightly, like, I was on the brink of quitting for real, but so I looked at Edinboro my junior year of high school, but felt pressure to go D1, so I kind of pushed it aside a little bit, and then I knew people here already, and somebody really close to me was like, hey, come look at Edinboro, so I did, and I got here, and I remember Coach, like, told me directly, he was like, hey, like, I always wish that you would have came here. He even, like, had my number still saved, which was, like, I know, he wanted me to come here so bad. So that, to me, I was like, okay, this is where I need to be at. Mm-hmm. So it was good. It was a good transition, I guess.
So let's talk about a little bit about, you said you were pressured to take the Division I offer. I know a lot of people struggle with that, especially today. Like, how were your emotions like in junior year, and like even like when you got to Cleveland? Was there anything that you expected that it wasn't the same, or like the treatment was different?
So I'm not somebody who I personally feel like I complain about things being hard or anything. So I knew it was going to be hard, and I knew that we were going to be practicing a lot. I almost felt like, I don't want to say overshadowed, but I felt like as a freshman, there were other freshmen around me too, and I knew that I was, you know, decent. Like, there was no need for me to be overshadowed the way that I was. So that to me kind of was like a red flag at first, because a couple of the coaches just like really weren't even interacting with me. Like, and I don't expect, you know, the spotlight to be on me. I'm not like that. But it was just, it almost felt like I wasn't getting the experience that I thought I was going to, I guess. So that was my freshman year. And then sophomore year, I don't want to say it was the same thing. There was just a bunch of, there's a bunch of experiences that really just pushed me away from the sport, and with me, like, struggling with my eating disorder and stuff, too, that just all along, like, practicing 3 times a day, dealing with that, too, that was just not a good combination, but.
So, if you're comfortable, comfortable enough to dive into, like, your eating disorder and, like, how you felt and, like, how swimming at the collegiate level affected that.
Sure, so it started whenever I was, I think, a sophomore or junior in high school, and I had lost a bunch of weight because I was using MyFitnessPal, which, that's a whole other thing, but yeah, so I was using that, and then I realized, like, okay, that's not right. So then I started to gain a little bit of weight back, and that actually translated into another eating disorder. So that is the one that I've been struggling with for 6 years, bulimia to be exact. And whenever I first got to college, I knew that I was going to have to try to, like, stop doing it. But once you're in that state of mind, like, it's kind of like an addiction almost, and it took such a toll on my body, especially, like I said, sophomore year just all around was just not good. And that was probably the worst year for my eating disorder in general, because I was like mentally, physically, all types of exhausted. I didn't feel like I was myself. I was very, negative, I guess, and I'm not typically, like, a negative person. I felt like I was, like, crying all the time, all this other stuff, and that was also another reason why I was like, okay, I can't keep doing this. And then I would say getting here, I still was struggling with it a little bit, but this year especially, I was able to kind of not get it under control, because there's definitely still sometimes where I'm really, really struggling with it. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to you, like, this week, like, I was having, like, a really rough time with it, but especially this season, I got to see with, like, actually fueling my body and, like, putting food into my body and, like, doing all the right things could translate into. So it's been, I guess, like I said, 5 or 6 years of dealing with it, which is kind of crazy, but.
Yeah, that's literally crazy, and we'll talk about like some of your successes you had in a second. But for someone who hasn't, like myself, I've never had to deal with the eating disorder. Like, I know you're saying struggle and stuff like that, but I feel like if you could help me like bridge the gap in terms of how it really feels. Like, for example, like just give me like an example of how like it genuinely feels like inside, like with food, like.
Yeah, so I feel like you said, if you haven't really dealt with it, or if you don't really know anybody who has dealt with it, or just anything like that, it seems so ridiculous because it's like, okay, just eat. Like, so many people have been like, okay, just eat, like, or just, like, oh, you're so pretty, you're so beautiful, like, why do you feel that way? And it's like, it's really not like that. Like, I'm trying to think. So for me, I've learned that it's more of like a control thing, and like with bulimia, what you do, it's kind of like a binge and purge type cycle, whether it be, I mean, this might be a little explicit, but that's how it is. Like, people can purge by exercising, by, like throwing up, by doing certain things like that. And that in itself, I was so embarrassed by it. Like, even to this day, like, I don't blatantly really go into detail about it because it is just like so embarrassing. And for somebody who doesn't really know what that's like, it's like you hide everything about it. A lot of people stereotype, and like I feel like you look at certain people, like I know a lot of people looked at me and was like, oh, there's no way, like there's no way. It's just, you feel, it's almost isolating. It's very isolating, actually. Like you don't feel like yourself, I guess. It's almost like a monster like kind of takes you over, and it's a scary thing, really.
Which is like crazy because I feel like you said, people always look at people and they assume, like, for example, somebody looks at you like, oh my gosh, she's so pretty, like she's successful at the collegiate level, like how could she be dealing with something like this? And honestly, that's why I'm like asking you to dig deeper, just because like I know there's people out there who probably look up to you, admire you, and just like might watch this and be like, wow, like I had no idea like someone this successful, someone this pretty could like be feeling this type of way.
Yeah.
So like when you are in those, like what are your coping mechanisms? So like now that we know that, like how did you get yourself, and how do you continue to get yourself out of like certain situations where you're feeling like that?
So I do still struggle with that in the sense of, like I said, it's weird because I can feel it, like for the negative coper with, the eating disorder and everything, I can feel it like coming on. And I've gotten to a point really, and I would say I kind of just like really had to sit with the uncomfortable feelings in order to move past it, because I used to avoid those uncomfortable feelings because it was the loss of control thing. Like I said, I had a bunch of things going on in my life and I felt like I had no control over, but the one thing that I could control was my eating disorder, and I could control like what I was putting into my body, what I was getting out of my body. And like, I don't know, it's just for that, I guess, like I said, I can feel it coming on, and I really have to sit there and either choose, I have to like physically make a choice of like, okay, am I going to continue down this road and do my binge and purge cycle, or am I going to sit with these uncomfortable feelings, actually feel them all the way through, and, get them out by any means, I guess. But I would say and if I don't choose to go down that binge and purge cycle, I like to typically like go for a walk or something like that, again, just so I can like sit with myself and really acknowledge what I'm feeling, I guess, per se. But yeah.
And so this question might sound really, really personal, but obviously it made like you made it sound like you've been through rough times in your life, especially like throughout college. And like if you had to talk about like one of your lowest days, how would you describe it?
Ooh,
Or like what would it be?
Let me think about this, because I will say I've definitely had a few. I'm gonna think about, there was a period of time last year. I have actually also dealt with a lot of suicidal ideation. I've dealt with like self-harm, stuff like that. There was a day last year, and I remember this so clearly. I was going through my binge and purge cycles, which that in itself already makes me feel horrible, because again, like it's not embarrassing, but again, it's like I felt like, I'm like, why am I doing this? Like what? Like for what? And I was just getting so fed up, and I was just fed up with everything else. And I feel like the night before I already had like resorted to self-harm and everything. And I remember this so clearly. I like got in my car and I started driving, and it was raining out, and I had to like pull over because I was just really, really like I really wanted to like die. Like there's been a couple times where I've, considered doing that, considered like ending my life, stuff like that. And I remember that day specifically so clearly. But yeah, that was definitely one of my lowest days, because not only there was the binge and purge cycle more than once, but there was self-harm the night before, and then again there was like those suicidal thoughts coming in that later on that day.
Mm-hmm. And so through all this, how would you say like or describe your support system or your faith?
Sure. So I feel like I have a lot of people, whether it be my family, whether it be my team, whether it be my friends, like that just genuinely like I don't want to say that they try to like put themselves in my shoes, but they understand. Like they're not people who are like, oh, like I get how you feel, because it's like you say that to people and it's like, but you don't understand because you're not in that person's position. But I do have a lot of people that will continuously ask me how I'm doing, like, do I need anything, like even like with like coach and everything. So many people that are just like, hey, like what's going on. And I've also learned too to be open with my feelings, because I used to be somebody who I care so much about everybody else that I always like put them up here and I put myself down here. And I've learned to, if somebody asks me if I'm okay, and I'm not, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not gonna lie, like, because obviously like holding those things down, that just leads you to leads me specifically, I guess, and I'm sure other people too, but like to like real dark places, to I don't know, yeah, I just have a lot of people, I guess, that are really supportive, and they try their hardest to, again, not understand, but help me out, I guess.
And it's a lonely place. Like I'm telling you, when I went through some things too on my own, it's like everyone's like, I got you, I hear you. But at the end of the day, like you gotta get through it. Like as much as people say, like, yeah, I've been there, I know how you feel, it doesn't make you feel any better, like in the moment. You're like, it doesn't.
No, I've like learned too that I'm somebody, I like my feelings to be validated. So if I'm sitting here and I'm like venting, I want somebody to be like, oh yeah, like that's really hard, like that sucks so bad. Like I don't want somebody to be like, oh, you know what, it'll be okay, like things, it's like that's not what I want to hear. But
and so your faith, you feel like you have faith or like anything spiritual level?
So I'm not really like I don't have like a specific faith that I follow or like spiritual, but I will say I'm somebody that believes, things happen for a reason. And when something bad happens, I always do keep that in the back of my mind. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, I don't question, if something bad does happen to me, I'm like, why is this happening? Because I feel like a lot of people do that. But I do feel like things do happen for a reason. And especially, like I said, this year I've come to that realization, and I'm not thankful for certain things that happen, because, I mean, they suck. But at the end of the day, things, again, do happen for a reason, and I fully believe that. And I think that's something that, like, pushes me forward and, like, makes it know whatever happens, and that's going to be fine.
And so we talked about, like, your lowest, kind of darkest moments. Let's switch it up and talk about your happiest moment, I guess, over the course of the last, like, few months, honestly, because of what I've seen and heard. So I'm asking you to, like, not be humble in this situation and just, like,
okay.
Be 100% honest. Like.
Okay. This year specifically, it made it all worth it. Like I said, I was so close to quitting swimming my sophomore year, and even before that I was getting really frustrated with swimming, because I was so good whenever I was younger, and then I kind of plateaued for a little bit, and definitely the eating disorder had played a huge role in that. But this year I'm going to talk about like specifically like two moments that I will just never forget. At PSACs, like after my 100 fly, which was like, that's whenever I broke like one of our school records or whatever, I remember touching the wall, and I didn't even look at the clock yet, but I saw my teammates just literally going insane, and I got out, and I like was like not crying, but kind of just like, breathing kind of heavy, because I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, and I saw coach, and like they were all just going so crazy for me, because I did not believe in a million trillion years that I could go that fast. That was wild. And then finding out that I made nationals, that was crazy. And then actually being there, that prelim swim, I'm telling you, I blacked out during that whole entire thing, because I was like in a flow state, because I touched the wall and I looked up, and I like was sobbing, because I was like, there's just no way. And yeah, so I made it back to finals, which I had no intentions of that happening, because I was 24th, and the top 16 made it back, and I just barely got in there, getting 16th. And then breaking our record too, that was also crazy. Like that made everything worth it for me, because I worked so hard, especially here, because I've coming here made me love swimming again. Like, it really, really did. And I give all of that to coach and to the past assistant coach and like the one now and like my teammates. There was not one singular day that I thought, oh my God, like I hate being here. I hate practicing. This sucks. Like I was always happy to go to practice here. And I think that obviously also translated into success like this year and however long I've been here, really.
Yeah. And so you talk about like younger you, and do you think younger you ever envisioned you being here?
No way. Like, I don't know about even just specifically like still swimming, because like I said, I would get so frustrated. I would say whenever I started like plateau would be whenever I was 13 or so, and I remember just getting so mad, and I just was like, I hate this, like I hate swimming. I remember my mom would always ask me, she's like, do you want to quit? And I'm like, no, but I was thinking about it. And like, honestly, I feel like she probably, like, younger me probably would have thought that I would have by now, which is really unfortunate, but I'm sure she's proud of me now. Like, I don't know. I was thinking about that actually, like, after nationals and everything, because obviously, like, that was my last swim. Like, that was it. And thinking about just, like, her, like, younger and her going through all the stuff that she's been through up until now, like, it's really crazy, and I'm really, like, proud of myself, and I'm sure younger me is proud of myself too.
And so were your parents swimmers too, or like?
No. No, actually, they like played other sports and stuff, but they had asked me a bunch of times, like at our summer pool, they're like, oh, you know, like, do you want to swim? And I'd be like, no. They'd ask me again and say the same thing. Then finally I was 8 and I gave in. And I remember the third practice I was crying because I thought it was too hard. And now here I am, 15 years later.
So did you feel like, since obviously your parents didn't swim, like, so like, what's your why? Why did you even start, or like, why did you continue?
I honestly feel like it was more trying to figure out like who I was as a person and trying to like do things for me. Like, this is something that I've done my whole entire life, and I just wanted to keep proving myself wrong, because I had so many doubts for so long about just my performance, just about swimming, about everything. And I just think deep down below those doubts, I just wanted to keep proving myself wrong, being like, you can do this. You are going to go faster. You are eventually going to, you know, go under. I remember last year for one of my races, I'd been stuck at 57 seconds for my second best event for 8 years, and I finally broke that. And that was like another, thank you, that was like another thing where I was like, okay, see, like, you're doing it, you did it. And I think it's just, like I said, continuously proving myself wrong and just knowing that I can do things that are difficult. It's a matter of resilience, I guess.
And so I usually conclude every interview with like a certain question, and based off like what you've told me, it seems as though like the people around you, especially at Edinboro, have like honestly like changed the way, you know, you view swimming now all over again. So if they were all sitting in this room, coach, your teammates, your family, what are a few words you'd have for them?
Oh man, see, now I might cry. I feel like I really can't even begin to explain the amount of thankfulness that I feel for everybody here, for coach, for all my teammates, all of the assistant coach, like my family, like, for not pushing me aside, for, you know, like I said, there's been times where I've like felt a little bit negative about swimming, but not one time have I ever felt that anybody doubted for a second what I could do. Especially, like, I can't thank coach enough for taking me in after originally saying, hey, like, I'm gonna go look at D1 schools. Like, I can't thank him enough for bringing me in and knowing that I can do all of these crazy things. Because whenever I actually was about to transfer, I remember like one of the coaches saying to me like, oh, you're gonna go D2, I hope you know, like, you're not gonna get any faster. And just like, I don't know, I can't thank all of those people enough. Like, I really, really, really can't. And I don't think I'll ever be able to fully get that across, because without them, I 100% would not be at this point, for sure. It's just in matters of swimming, in matters of life, really. Like, so yeah, I can't even put it into words.
And so like, as like, obviously I didn't know all that, especially like everything related to self-harm, you know, potentially taking your life. I just want to let you know that I'm like so proud of you. Like after hearing that, like I was just like, wow, like you really did that. And at the end of the day, you know, you could thank everybody else around you, but at the end of the day, you got yourself out of it. You made the decision to continue to swim. You continue to make the decision every single day to live. And so as, you know, I guess like another athlete next to you, and to be able to hear this, I hope like there's a little girl out there that like watches this and like is feeling the same thing that you feel, and just thinks to herself like, wow, like if she did it, like I can too. So.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. That means a lot too.
Yeah. So yeah. Anything else like?
Thank you. Just so much. Like seriously, thank you. A lot.
Yeah, no problem. Come on. Thanks for coming. Appreciate that.